This is 7th Circle Gaming, and today we're going to be following up on our discussion of Victoria 3 with another, frankly, very large game called Gotham Knights. And we'll get started like we always do with full disclosure, and you're very welcome to pause the video now at this point and read through all of these at your leisure, or no obligation. Let's just jump right into the screenshots then, shall we? The first one that we're going to share with you is the map that players are going to see that is of the entirety of Gotham City, so they claim. And what we want to draw your attention to from this screen is the complexity of the user interface. There's a lot of icons on the screen to look at. There's different items on the top and the bottom, and then on the right-hand side. And that's really all there is to say about this, other than to be illustrative of the size of the area that players can explore. Now then, let's take a look at the world that players are going to be exploring on this map. And what it's going to look like is this. Now, I do apologize for the minor story spoiler on the screen and the user interface. What we really want to draw your attention to is the look of the game and the look of the user interface. It's pretty minimalistic. The player character and the world behind them look particularly realistic and at all unrelatable to any modern large cities. There's also the handy compass, which is pretty standard for games of this type. We're also obviously looking at a third-person perspective. And with that, let's move on to the customization options screen. And this is frankly just one of the customizations, the slightly more meaningful customization that Gotham Knights is going to offer the player. There are other options, but as far as impact on gameplay, this is the one that's going to have the most impact. Not to repeat myself. Well, anywho, let's move on. That's all the screenshots that we have, and we're going to move to Chapter 1, Immersion. And Gotham Knights is has earned a 9 out of 15 for Immersion. Obviously, it's a third-person perspective, as we've just shown. It's a realistically modeled major city. It does lack any kind of fall damage that we've seen. There's usually some sort of Deus Ex Machina of firing the back grapple or something at the last second to slow the fall and prevent fall damage, but that's neither here nor there. The game is going to be offering player agency to get players immersed into or invested in the game world. There's several types of customization on offer, not only to the player character, but also to the bat cycle or the vehicle that's available for players to drive around the city. There's also an upgrade path, as we saw, and that decisions about which one or which direction to go are player defined. The game is also going to be using story to get players invested into the game world. And pretty much everything that takes place in the game is meant to be perceived as part of a larger plot. In addition to this, there's also audio. And the most impactful for immersion is there's in-game banter between the characters, especially in the home base area. There's also combat sounds, quips, and other general noises as players traverse the city. Finally, the last thing that the game is going to be doing to get players invested into the game world is it's going to be using challenge. Combat encounters can be fast-paced, or they have additional requirements and objectives. Some of these are just bonus objectives, some of these are sort of requirements that the game has. for gaining extra upgrade points or upgrade materials. And now then, since that's all there is to say about immersion, let's move on and talk about difficulty. Um, Gotham Knights has earned a 4.5 out of 15 for difficulty. Yes, there are difficulty options, but they're kind of buried in the menus. It took even us a while to find them, it's not readily apparent. And the only options that are available are the basic, easy, medium, and hard, with barely any description of what that means or how that's going to impact gameplay. The user interface, as we saw, is pretty serviceable. We might even call it standard for the third person open world action genre. However, as the game tries to display more information on the screen, the displays can become more confusing, with information overlapping and information becoming more difficult to locate. On the other hand, apart from some very minor differences, we did find that the game works equally well with a keyboard and mouse or gamepad. The combat, and this is going to be a highly subjective comment, so please grains of salt. The combat did seem to be a little more responsive with the gamepad than the keyboard and mouse, but the difference is so minor as to barely be noticeable, but it is there, and so we will comment on it. So then, since that's all there is to say about difficulty, we need to move on to lasting appeal. And here, Gotham Knights has earned a 6 out of 15. While it doesn't have any DLC at present, it doesn't have any mod support, there is the option of replaying as other characters, unlocking additional items, additional costumes, trying a different upgrade path, trying on higher difficulty, or trying on some sort of challenge run, like sticking to only one character, or taking the least optimal upgrades, that sort of thing. And there's enough activities that are varied enough that players can play through this or spend a significant amount of time in the game, as much as they really have free to spare. So then, let's move on, and we do need to wrap everything up with the overall score. And these are all going to be highly subjective, so again, grains of salt, both shoulders, and whatever else you prefer to think of. The two changes that really appear to have been made from the previous game, that being Arkham Knight or Arkham Origins, I have to double check the release dates on that, is there are civilians added to the game. So we're not looking at everyone on the street as some sort of goon. It's kind of a big difference there. And the vehicle seems to have been made significantly more important in gameplay. Beyond that, there is a significant amount of customization. However, some of it seems to lack purpose beyond having customization, fulfilling that obligation that it's there. On the other hand, this is, as we said at the start of this analysis, a very large game, and there's activities that players can get lost in for hours and hours on end. But it's all fairly mindless activity, and there's no obligation necessarily to follow the story or progress through the story. The game will continue to generate missions for the players to go through every night, or every in-game night, rather. And so, for that reason, the 6.5 could be moved up to a 7, as long as the player is really interested in having a game that provides enough value for money to make the player feel like they've spent their 59 or local equivalent, their 59 US dollars or local equivalent wisely. And with that, that is the end of the video. Congratulations to anyone who made it all the way to the end. There's nothing more from us about Gotham Knights. And from 7th Circle Gaming,